All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got retired Colonel Rich Outzen, who's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and also the Jamestown Foundation, who's joining us live on this broadcast. Colonel Outzen, this was, something, a conflict that had been building up to for the last many weeks, ever since the Israelis carried out the attack yesterday night. The Iranians had said that it was inevitable that they would strike back. They've now struck back. In your assessment, tell us, in military terms, what is the significance of this Iranian reprisal?
Well, it's good to be with you. I think the significance is, first of all, that Iran retains the capability to conduct some direct attacks against Israel. We've seen this before, and after a very impressive set of strikes by the Israeli forces, including the use of drones that were apparently built and assembled within Iranian territory against Iran's surface-to-surface missile inventory, and then, of course, extensive airstrikes, that Iran still retains the capacity to strike back with their own surface-to-surface missiles. We'll see if the hypersonics pan out. So I think point one, from a military perspective, is that while this contest is clearly one in which the Israeli forces have taken the initiative and struck very painful blows, Iran's not entirely out of the game. I think the second thing that we have to look at is the fact that Israel's success with its attacks indicates that there's a very fragile and uneven quality to the Iranian military capability. Clearly, they know how to use proxies. They have attempted to weaponize their nuclear program. They have an impressive missile capability, but they could not stop either Israel from having Mossad agents building drones and attacking leadership targets, C2 and AD, air defense, on their own territory, nor could they stop the airstrikes. So when we talk about going to an all-out war, it's really not an equal, despite the disparity in size between the two countries, it's not an equal fight, because the Israeli military capability in the conventional sense is well honed and impressive and sustained, whereas in the case of Iran, it's very uneven and apparently not as effective as one would expect from a country of 85 million.
Absolutely. I think that of course, is true. The military capabilities of these two nations are very different, especially considering that the state of Israel is backed by the United States of America. And this was something that was said by the American President Donald Trump, where he said that the Israelis used some of the top-notch military hardware that the Americans had given to the Israelis. But the question, Colonel Outzen, that I want to ask you is this. At this moment, do you think this will get into a situation of an all-out war? Or will we see a few rounds of, attacks and counterattacks, and then things could taper off? Which way do you think this contest is headed?
Well, it's an interesting term, all-out war. As a ground forces officer myself from the U.S. Army, to me, an all-out war implies ground maneuver as the arm of decision to have forces invade another country, defeat their military, and overthrow their government. Now, that's not the case here. Neither one of these countries they don't share a common border. Right. They're not going to exchange nuclear. So in one way or the other, it's going to be something short of a war to overthrow the regime. From the Israeli perspective, I think what they hope happens, and what many in the United States hope happens, is that there will be a demonstrative effect here, where we see that the Iranian people, who clearly do not like their own regime, the average Iranian person is not nearly as anti-Western or as theocratically minded as their government is. Right. If they see, in fact, that this government cannot protect its own territory and has just been punched in the face in a way that it could not defend against, and we both know that there's been multiple major uprisings by the Iranian people previously against their own government. Right. I think that's the theory of victory for the Israelis, is not that they overthrow the government through an all-out war, but that the demonstrative effect of showing the weakness of the regime encourages the people to rise up against it.
Right. I'm pretty sure a lot of the Iranian people would be aware of the military weakness of the Iranian government at this moment in comparison to Israel, which is a nuclear-powered nation that is backed by the United States of America. And it's an interesting argument that is made by a lot of Western analysts who say that if the Iranian government appears to be failing or does not appear to match Israel militarily, then the people will rise up. Contrary to that, a lot of people will, of course, turn around and say that this may rally a lot of public support for the Iranian government that otherwise may not enjoy a lot of approval from the general public there. How do you see this playing out?
It's an excellent point. I mean, look, every country, and it's in the psychology of humans, the rally around the flag effect. But I think anecdotally, we have, by the way, there's millions of Iranians who live in the United States. So it's not as if, and just as an anecdote, my wife, who's a medical professional, works with an Iranian who goes back home to Iran pretty frequently, right? So it's not like there's no human-to-human contact. This is not Cold War era with a wall between the two societies. We actually know what a lot of Iranians think. And what we hear from the Iranians is they all, I don't know all, but a significant portion of the Iranian population thinks that the government and the regime and what they have done in terms of, you know, it's not just opposing Israel on Gaza or something like that. It's this whole staking their identity in opposition to the West and the destruction of Israel in the United States. That's their governing theology. I think a huge number of people in Iran think that they deserve better. They want to be a normal country with a normal economy and not with the sanctions.
But at the same time, Colonel Houghton, I'm pretty sure they don't want the Israelis or the Americans to be dictating to the Iranian people as to what kind of a government should rule over them. If they want a change of government, then that is something that has to come from within rather than something that is imposed from the outside. But thank you very much indeed, Colonel Houghton, for joining us with that perspective there.
Absolutely. Good to be with you, and President Trump agrees.
All right.